Phantasy Star Online. Oh, how I used to love you. And to be honest, I still kind of do love that game. I do play it online quite a lot of work, and that's when it's over a decade old. I can't say the same for Phantasy Star Universe though. It did evolve the series, kinda, but it wasn't the big game everyone kind of expected it to have. I mean, it was missing quite a lot. It wasn't just the feel that the old series had, it was just a boring game. And it's funny that, because it had the same kind of mechanics that the original one had, but there was just something about it that made it less fun to play. I think it did feel like a complete tonal shift from what Phantasy Star Online had made for us. And even then, I must say, I did love the expansion. It did take it in a darker kind of way, but even then, it's not quite how it should have been. The biggest complaint with Phantasy Star Universe I had was some awful character development and voice acting, and by putting Ether down a much darker path as well as taking him away from being the main character, really served this a lot better. And so I think the expansion probably just didn't get enough playment from enough people to really register. Had that been the original game, it probably would have been much better received. But anyway, Phantasy Star Online 2, it feels like it has been a lifetime in the waiting, and it will finally hit the States sometime next year, I think March. I love the game from what I've played with it so far, and while my Japanese isn't perfect, I do actually know enough to get along with the game, and really it's quite import friendly anyway. Now, I know they've said they're banning American game, or I suppose any gamer that's not in Japan at the moment. My account hasn't been blocked yet. I don't know if that means they will, or the simple fact of saying it was just a way to deter people from playing it. I've had no trouble logging on and playing my character whatsoever. So if you can still get hold of it, there are various websites that will help you set it up. I'd recommend certainly doing that. The game feels like Phantasy Star Online just brought into the next gen. My PC's not fantastic, but it looks amazing on screen. It feels like Phantasy Star Online, but just looks so much better. And the combat is so evolved from what it used to be. It does feel like a much more action-orientated MMORPG, and that is fantastic because you just don't get that. I am actually quite sick of games like World of Warcraft and their system of just waiting and charging up. Yes, I love my RPGs, but an action online RPG that you can play with a load of friends seems so rare nowadays, and Phantasy Star Online 2 has captured that perfectly. So the character creation is fantastic. I love that. I love the whole look, the whole aesthetic of the Phantasy Star Online universe. I love sci-fi stuff anyway, and I think that's part of the charm for me. It's probably not everyone's cup of tea, but I personally love it. So logging into the game, strangely enough, it's not one of these things you'd normally mention, but the screens in this game, just the logging on screens look wonderful, and they're mostly just blue screen wire effects and such. It's not that flashy, but it's so effective. The kind of way they've also gone from transporting from one planet to not always planet, sometimes to another ship, depending on the mission, but the way they do that, I love this idea of just jumping into this, I want to say, pool of water. Essentially it's like a transport device. You jump into that, you're ejected at the bottom of the ship, and you land on the planet. This is all shown very well in the opening video, which, if I remember rightly, should be the first thing that plays as part of this commentary, so you would have seen this already and you should have loved it. The combat, the weapons make a nice kind of evolution as well. I haven't had much hands-on focus with that. I've mostly been playing as a hunter, but even then I haven't got through that many weapons. Having the big swords as kind of the standard weapon now has meant they've made what you can do with them a lot faster. They're a lot more usable even on quick groups of enemies, and they have a multi-gun sword weapon. I don't want to call it a gunplay, but that's the closest approximation I can come to. I was set to actually fire bullets on that Final Fantasy 8. More on that later. But yeah, it's a lovely little thing just to use if you want to quickly switch up, see what other roles would be like to play, as well as having a kind of multi-class weapon. But I'm happy just enough using a sword at the time. Oh, I've also used a partisan-like weapon. I don't know what the names are, but I'm going to assume that they follow Phantasy Star traditions of like a sword being a level 1 sword, a brand being a level 2. You get the idea. So the combat is about as good as it's ever been, really. So standard attacks, they've carried over the Phantasy Star Universe combo system, and that you don't have to have perfect timing, unlike Phantasy Star Online, but if you get that perfect timing, your attacks do much more damage. They also seem to have a higher knockback effect. That could just be completely random on my part, and I've just got lucky, but that seems to be the case. Again, not being able to transfer all the manuals of the game online, I can't tell you exactly, but it's pretty good. So you can dodge, block, combo, add in special attacks as necessary. Mags make a lovely welcome return. I have missed mags. I don't know what it is that makes mags so much fun, but I like the idea of having a little pet as such. It's cool. It's a nice little system. What to say, there's a surprisingly big English-speaking community on the game, so I wouldn't worry about that if that's what you are worried about. If you're going into the game, don't worry about it at all. It makes it so much easier. If you look at whatever website is showing you how to get onto the game, there is a nice long list of ships and servers that you log into, and you'll find English-speaking players. There's more being added all the time. As every ship gets full, it gets locked off, and you'll have to choose another one. So yeah, it's pretty awkward if your friend has already joined a ship you can't get into, but you shouldn't generally have this trouble. If you sign up together, make a plan in advance what you're going to sign into, and you should be fine. But yep, that's Phantasy Star Online 2. I have a full review coming, which I'll be doing for inMotionGaming over the next week, so you can get my proper thoughts on it then, but I just wanted to share what I thought initially of it. I initially think it's a bloody awesome game. They've done a hell of a lot with it. It's a fantastic evolution, and I cannot wait for the English version so I can play with all my friends that don't want to touch anything Japanese. It's fantastic. So, see you all later, and thanks for listening.